You ready for this? All right. The statements issued by hosts, co-hosts, guests, and anyone else appearing on the show do not reflect the stance of the College of New Jersey or the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Hey listeners, Brian from the future here. Due to the depth and richness of our discussion with Melissa, we're presenting this as a multi-part episode. You won't want to miss part 2, which will drop next week. All right, welcome back to the TCNJ AT Talks podcast. We are the podcast affiliated with Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ, here to inform, educate, and empower listeners about assistive technology. I'm your host, Brian Kenyon, owner of Kenyon Learning and Consulting, and in this episode, we're joined by Melissa Milich, a teacher of the visually impaired who also navigates the world as a vision tech user and avid tech enthusiast. She'll share her unique perspective on how technology levels the playing field for people with disabilities, especially those with severe and multiple disabilities. This week, we thought it would be fun, and I think we'll kind of do this going forward, for those of you listening, for those of you watching, to kind of describe ourselves, what we're wearing, and what's going on with us. So I'm Brian. I have a buzz cut and close trim beard. I'm wearing a green polo shirt, and right now my background is a light blue, I guess you would call it an ombre background, because it kind of goes from really light at the bottom to darker blue at the top.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm Madison. I have blonde hair and it is tied back in a ponytail, and I'm wearing a black tank top and I have black headphones on.
Oh, all right. Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa. So happy to be here. Very excited. I am wearing a flowery top. My hair is in a short bob, brown hair, brown eyes, and I have some posters behind me as well.
Good.
Awesome.
All right. First, we're going to start off with our mailbag. So it's that time again. Let's open the mailbag and see what our listeners are asking. Madison, do you want to do the honors?
Sure. All right. This email comes from a listener named Sarah. She writes, "Hi, Brian, Madison, and the TCNJ team. I'm a child study team case manager, and I love the podcast. We have a new second grade student on our caseload who is visually impaired and also has some other developmental delays. Our team feels a bit overwhelmed and isn't sure where to start when it comes to technology. We are planning to request a formal AT evaluation, but we know that process can take time. My question is, what are the first steps a school should take before a formal evaluation? And are there simple, low or light tech tools that we can be trying in the classroom right now to help him participate? We've heard about frameworks like SET, but we're not sure about how to use that at this early stage. Any guidance you could offer would be amazing. Thank you."
Perfect. That's a fantastic question. And it's one I get a lot and a lot of teams are facing. It gets the heart of being proactive. Melissa, with your experience in the classroom, what are your initial thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of tools you're looking at. I can really mostly speak to the vision tech, which is different than like how you'd get an AAC device. And so like as, as the set framework says, I guess keeping in like mind what your setting is, like basic stuff, like what do you want to do and what the main tool for the job is. I guess maybe my advice would be to like have a really to just advise with all the disciplines that may have something to say, because I think what was happening here in the early days, everybody was kind of in their lane. And so, oh, this is a speech device, so the speech therapist should recommend it. And then we were saying, like, well, hold a minute, like, how are you supposed to use something if you can't perceive it visually, auditorily, whatever? And then, like, I never thought about, how placement can impact. Like, I'm not trained to look for those things of like, where is their best access method, like switch placement, like what kind, direct, indirect, all that kind of stuff. So I think my recommendation would just be to have your paperwork up to date. Like if there's an I report, have that be as recent as possible. Consult with a TVI if you have one from a vision perspective, but also everybody else, because I've also feel like I've learned so many things from all my other team members that I never would have thought of. So just having a team approach is what I think is the most important, because everybody's going to notice something different and it can come into like a cohesive whole, and you already might have an idea of what is needed. That being said, and I think I'll touch on this more later, but Vision Tech and AT for, communication access and motor access, I find that there's not a lot of overlap and there's not a lot of collaboration. Like people that I know in the vision world who are so proficient at vision tech, like don't even know what like a wobble switch is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then like I have taken courses for like ATP, like to learn more about this side of tech, right? The motor and communication side. And the person who was leading that course was like, if you have to use a braille display, consult with a vision tech person. Like I cannot, like that's different. So just making sure everybody has a voice is I think the most important.
Good.
Kind of
Good.
vague, but without knowing the student, it's like I think that's the most important.
And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Madison.
I was just going to say, I really like that whole team approach from the beginning, because everybody, can play a part and contribute their expertise. And like you were saying, that helps to educate you as an AT professional in, maybe how you might approach something that you don't know a lot about if it's in a different discipline. And I also appreciate you talking about, as an AT professional, looking for other AT skills in different areas that aren't just like specifically related to your expertise or your discipline. I think that's really important as well.
Good.
Totally. Yeah, because sometimes it might not even occur to like I never might have thought that like you can I don't know, like use a pour cup, or that like a power chair can lift up to reach something, like so like there are so many solutions that people can come up with that like you would never think of things. So just team approach, team approach, team approach. And then the other thing I would say is when the evaluation is requested, I only found out recently, and I don't know what the case is in New Jersey, but here in New York, the CAT team comes to do our AT evals usually for AAC. For in terms of like recommending devices, getting devices for students. And I've just recently found out that if the student is visually impaired, they do have AT specialists who are specific to vision. So now we make sure to ask if there's an AT eval for someone who is visually impaired, we have to ask, please make sure that someone on the CAT team is a vision CAT, like a vision specialist for vision AT, because again, you don't know who's going to recommend a what, who knows what. So just making sure, because it really does change how you interact with your environment if your perception is impaired, whether it be visual or auditory.
Awesome. Definitely. For sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but in New Jersey, there is no AT teams. I know in Pennsylvania, they have AT teams. And I know in, I guess now I know in New York, they have AT teams. But
it's a vision, Brian. We're looking toward the future. Hopefully that can be the reality for New Jersey as well.
Yes, that's a hard one to answer too. I agree with you, Melissa. There's puffy paint, there's slant boards, there's so much, but without knowing the student, you're right. It's tough to kind of just answer that question. There's different types of even tactile aids that we could think about too. So adding markers and stuff like that, outlining worksheets, highlighting stuff, just doing high contrast.
There's so many things. Sorry to interrupt, but like
nope.
That just made me think of like people sometimes have the best intentions. And so like I've had people here with, again, best intentions where like, let's put textures on everything. This has it. And it's like at some point it gets confusing. And I think that's why vision professionals are there to be like, okay, how can we make this consistent so that it means something? And of course for all the other disciplines too, but it's like, I think vision is so intimidating for so many people because like you don't know what that person is getting. So just getting all these things are like exist. Like that doesn't mean first, and also like even high tech is not the answer for everybody. Like understanding that yes, there's so many things out there, but like this is why it takes a whole team to choose what the most appropriate thing is, because like there's so much out there. We don't want to also like overwhelm. And like now, like, I don't know, your communication device has like 30 things on it. Are you going to have like 30 different textures? Do people know that like your fingers have a much lower resolution than do your eyes? Like you
Mhm.
can't distinguish so many things in such close, you know, so like all the things that go into making some of these decisions just has to be team based.
Yeah. And less is more, right? I think we always say that. I think a great example of that is keyboards and with tactile braille dots, as I call them, the tactile bumps you put on keyboards.
Yeah.
And when you first start putting them on, even the user wants to put them everywhere. I want them here. I'm like, well, no, we got to slow down because you're going to get confused. You're not going to know exactly what every dot is and where it is.
Yeah.
We should start with the most used keys all the time, and then we can expand from there. And usually, when you start with only the used keys and you ask them later, or they're usually like, nope, this is enough. There's enough on here. I don't need any more bump dots.
And then if you can even work towards getting them off completely, that way now you can use any computer anywhere.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
So
It's all
definitely.
about motor planning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good.
All
right.
Melissa, I did notice we didn't have you introduce yourself. Could you just kind of give us a background and tell us a little bit more
Sure.
about you? We kind of jumped right into things.
I know, we're so excited.
Sorry about that.
So again, I'm Melissa. I work as a TBI here in New York City. I'm originally from Montenegro. I have Leber's congenital amaurosis, which is LCA, you may have heard. So for me, it kind of comes in different shapes and sizes. For me, that means I don't have color perception. I have very severe photophobia. I behave as a blind person in the sun, and I am very functional at night. Very vampire-like of me, but yeah. So that and love tech, of course. So hence I'm here. And love my cats. I have to put that in everywhere.
What are your cats' names?
Titsko and Mitsko. They're very Montenegrin.
Are they from?
European.
Are they
Yeah.
from Europe? Are they from Montenegro?
Yep, I have brought 2 cats in the middle of the pandemic when I was still in school and like had no job. It was a great time, but I'm so happy because they're my children.
Wow.
That's awesome. I love
Did you go to school here, or did you go to school when you were lived in
so,
Montenegro?
Yeah, so I came here when I was about 11 for my my parents' job, and then they moved back eventually, and I ended up staying. So all the way from middle school to here, really, plus or minus COVID, because crazy time. I've been here, and I did high school, college, graduate school. So I live here now in New York City, and I love it.
Cool.
So that's me.
Yes. All right. So thank you for your introduction, and thanks for those excellent answers. I like the team approach. We always talk about that. And if anyone would like to submit a question or leave a SpeakPipe message, please visit the atcenter.tcnj.edu website. And there's a podcast tab. Under there, you'll find the necessary links for either a Google form or to leave the voice memo. So now, Melissa, we're going to do some rapid fire questions. This is going to help. Now, You did help us get to know you well there, but we like to start with some fun. And so, Madison, do you want to do it this? I usually do it. So, Madison, you want to kick us off this time?
Sure. Sounds good. All right. You ready for this, Melissa?
All right. I'm ready.
Okay. We're going to start off with just some personal fun questions.
right.
First one is coffee or tea?
Tea, definitely.
Tea. What kind of tea do you like? Decaf. Okay.
Yes. Like I like my herbal blends of, I like a good peppermint. Oh, classics. I like a good ginger, lemon, anything citrus, like in general, smells or tastes just citrus all over. So
nice. Love
that's
that.
me, tea girly.
All right. Beach or mountain for vacation?
Oh, that's hard. Maybe mountain. I think it's quieter. There's usually nature. Montenegro has both, so I did get to pick a lot of the times. And yeah, nice and quiet, calm. Maybe a lake. Ooh, some s'mores.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one too.
Where you grew up in Montenegro? Were you in the mountains or were you by the beach?
No, I was in the capital. I was right in the middle.
Okay.
So a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Okay.
So
awesome. All right. Sweet or savory snacks?
Savory, for sure.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats? So you kind of already answered this.
All the
cool.
way.
What is your favorite season?
Ooh, see, I want to say spring, but spring in New York is not fun. I think in New York I like winter, in Montenegro I like spring.
You like winter
Win
in New York?
Yeah, because it's all
Wow, that's an
decorated.
uncommon answer.
It's pretty. Everything's shiny,
I do
sparkly,
agree.
glittery. Summer's too humid for me. Fall is okay. I don't know. I feel like it's too humid otherwise, or too rainy. Um,
Would winter in New York be like during the like holiday season? Like after January
yeah.
1st,
I
how do you feel about New York?
mean, I don't know. I don't mind. I think it's also I don't know. I like it. I you can always like be nice and warm, like blanket, cat, book. Fits my vibe. I'm kind of like an indoor person too, so like everybody else in summer's maybe a little too much energy for me.
All
So
right. Um, so when you commute to work, do you like to listen to an audiobook, a podcast, music? What do you like?
yeah, music usually. I like to make little like music videos in my head in terms of like I listen to a lot of instrumental. I mean, I listen to things with words too, but I like to make my little self like a soundtrack of oh, like there's a train coming in, we need something powerful, or like oh, we're passing by some trees, something nice and calm. So I have fun with it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Call or text?
Cool.
All right. Favorite book, movie, or TV show, or any kind of other media that you like?
I really like the Phantom of the Opera movie. I mean, no, people have like conflicting opinions, but I think it was just the cinematography is really nice. Love the music. My singing teacher was involved with the production. So special place in my heart, that one.
Did you ever see it when it's not on Broadway anymore, right? Did you ever
No,
see it when
I
it was on
saw it
Broadway?
like 3 times. Oh yeah.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
Okay,
There.
cool.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So,
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
ooh, that's a hard one. I feel like flying would be cool. I mean, it's basic, but like it's freeing. So maybe
Definitely.
that.
Okay, we're going to go into part 2. So these are more AT focused questions.
Hmm.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite low or light tech solution in your field?
Tangible symbols. I'm
I like the
showing my
singing.
Oh
Showing your
yeah.
pipes.
Oh yeah. Well, they're a very big part of what we do here, and I think they kind of represent vision in
Hmm.
that like severe multiple space for our kids, and I feel like we're still rolling out like we started off with not really having many, then now every classroom has one, and we're still working on getting like environmentals, so like you can touch like the pool, and you're at the like the pool noodle, you're at the pool, that kind of thing. And I think people often don't think of it, but also it can be a supplement and support for communication, but they can also be used to like make a story. Um, you know, like uh like talk about things, like not necessarily just make choices. Again, orient yourself, predict. We do a lot of like calendar bins, and I feel like
Hmm.
they're communication, but they're also very big in to concept development. I feel like they give so much access and that are just like fundamental stepping stones, like starting points. Exactly. So always singing the praises of the tangibles.
Okay.
Mhm.
What is the biggest myth that you'd like to bust about your profession?
That we can tell you what kids sees. So to explain that a little bit, yes, vision teachers are there to support the team and the student, but a lot of it is about teaching concepts. Like, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who is, completely blind and has been since like his whole life since birth, right? And so he did not know how to use a pair of scissors and did not know how to peel a banana. You have other people who like I've heard stories of colleagues who've said like, no, my student was arguing with me about like a cut orange. Orange slices not being the same as an orange because they feel totally different. And especially if someone always prepares the orange for you ahead of time, you never get access to the real round orange. And
Hmm.
so I think that's something that a lot like for other team members. vision is like, okay, great, this vision teacher can tell me what color to make the device, or like, and that's very important, and we can from behavior infer what they're seeing. But people often ask me, so if you're colorblind, does that mean you see in black and white? And I like to joke and say, I mean, I could see in shades of pink for all we know, because in order to know what pink like, I need to know what black and white is as compared to something else. I only have my perception. Side note, I do a lot of art, and I work with charcoal a lot because charcoal focuses on values and not colors.
Ooh.
So that's that for me, but I always struggle to answer that question because no one has ever been in my head, and I have never also been in someone else's to understand what color is in order to be able to compare their experience to mine. So in that way, I like to even tell my students, like, someone asks me, like, what can they see? And I'll say, well, Johnny, I'm going to talk from what I know, from what I see you doing, and from what I know of your paperwork. But if I'm saying something that you don't agree with, you tell me, no, not that, right? Because I can't I can't say what's in somebody's head and how they perceive the world. Because I also think about, like, there was that dress going around a while back, whether it was
I
like
know
white
exactly.
or
Yeah.
gold, was it right? It was like one was like
Yeah.
red and whatever. So like our
Yes.
brains are all working in their own way. And like sometimes I think people go around not even knowing they're colorblind because sometimes it doesn't matter. Or like you might not realize if you have like a slight color, or sometimes even I've had people, like, I'll ask like, hey, what color is this, right? So one person will say, no, that's a pink, no, that's a red. Like, so the biggest myth is like we work off of, especially with our nonverbal kiddos and clients and people that we work with, we can observe, but I can't ever tell you what exactly this person is perceiving unless they have other means to tell me, or to like, okay, Johnny, show me the ball, and they can follow that command and show me. And then I can at least know that they know what a ball is and that they know which picture it is. I still don't know how they're perceiving that ball, if it's the same as me, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's a
yeah, a
great
little
answer.
long-winded, but yeah,
No, that's
thank
a great
you. I
answer.
love
That's
that's like a chip on my shoulder all the time. I'm like,
yes.
we were not, there's no camera from their brain into my computer to tell me what they're doing.
Yeah.
I
I
just
bet.
have to go off of their behavior and what I know best practices are for people who can tell me what they need, who are blind or low vision.
Yeah, I can totally see that being very frustrating. In your your process of looking at that student and what they need, and other, professionals asking you that question, or,
Yeah,
maybe parents, or
yeah,
anyone. But
yeah, yeah,
that's a good kind of bringing it back to that. Everyone has, a different, what they can see is different, and they don't know that difference because
yeah.
that's what they know.
I sometimes I will make font too small for my kids on purpose to try to get the, because like,
Mm.
how do I know if they know if they have a visual impairment? Maybe I can't just sit down and explain to you, hey, I can see things that you can't see, or like this other person can see things I can't see. Maybe that's too abstract for them. But if I'm like, where's the blah blah blah, and I make it really tiny, and then I'm like, maybe we should make it bigger. And then
Yeah.
they find it's like, oh, maybe you just needed it a little bigger so that you could see, like giving people that language. I'm sure, you know, you
And from
guys,
a
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I was just going to say, from a speech perspective, that's giving them those like self-advocacy skills, that language, like you said, and the language empowers them to be able to advocate for their needs, which is awesome.
yes. To even know, like, oh, I guess those other adults can know, like, see font that's that small. Wild. Like, you sometimes don't even know. Like, sometimes I'll ask people, so how many blocks ahead can you see the bus? And like and then they tell me like two stops down or something. I'm like, man, that's not fair. Just for fun. But like, yeah, it's so interesting. Everybody has different perceptions, and we just have to like remember how different perceptions shape experiences
That's a great
and work
technique.
within that.
I like that idea of making the self advocacy. Yeah,
Mhm.
yes, that was good.
Okay, last rapid fire question. One word to describe the future of your field.
Oh, oh, that's a hard one. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's also tricky because here I feel like there's like vision at iHope versus doing vision for a kid who's like college bound is like so focuses on such different things. But maybe like at least I'm hoping it would be like more integrated, more understood amongst like, and not just vision, but like that all the disciplines will. So I guess word is integrated, and then to expand would be, because it can't just be one, is that like everybody just understands and asks for like feed. Oh, well, I don't know how to do this, but I can ask the speech therapist. Oh, I don't know how to do this, I can ask the vision teacher. More interconnected, integrated. That's 2 words, but this is a really hard one.
It's hard on purpose.
Try it here. Try it.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Those were great. It's fun to get some insight into our guest personalities and kind of learn more about how they feel, not only about their profession, but their personal life too. And that's a wrap on another episode of AT Talks. A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We love making this podcast and building this community with all of you. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. The team at the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ is dedicated to supporting educators across New Jersey. If you were inspired by today's discussion and want to bring high-quality, free professional development to your district, Vanessa and Madison are ready to help. To learn how you can partner with the center and build capacity in your school, head over to our website. You can find all the information you need at atcenter.tcnj.edu. And while you're there, we want to hear from you. Visit the podcast tab. There you can send us a question through our Google form, or even better, leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe for us to play live on the show. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all our latest events and resources. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube with the handle @ATCenterTCNJ. And don't forget to subscribe to AT Talks on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you never miss an episode. On behalf of Vanessa, Madison, and myself, Brian, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.